All right. What's up, y'all?
Now we're going.
Welcome to the Sandcast with Tri Bourne and Travis Mewhirter, brought to you by Volleyball Mag, and also our friends at Chomps who have provided these lovely pod snacks for us today.
We've been waiting for a year to get a pod snack sponsor, and now we're good.
We officially have
on
pod snack sponsor in Chomps with our beef sticks.
Great name,
sticks.
too. Nice and simple.
Yeah, the tagline is also, "We are the champions." I'm into it.
I love that.
I'm into it. It's going to come in handy on the road. Anyway, I had to start this podcast off with a little bit of y'all since you're a country boy and you are the topic of today's podcast. Finally.
Yeah, I get to be on my own show.
Yeah, you finally made it. And I figured, you've been talking for over a year now to all these people, to our listeners, and half of them probably don't even know who the hell you are. You should probably tell them. So, today our topic is Travis Money Mewhirter.
Well, hopefully our listeners can help me make a couple dollars with the new book that came out today.
Exactly.
That I've been working on that was actually how we met. It's kind of funny, too, because the very first interview I did for the book was with you.
Oh, that was for the book.
Yeah. And then we ended up doing the live stream from Manhattan, and then we got breakfast at the Ocean Diner, and then we got the Sandcast. So it's all due to the book,
that's
which
true.
comes out today. And now I'm talking about the book on the podcast that was a result of the book.
Whoa,
this is kind of meta.
Full circle.
Yeah.
Full circle. That is kind of crazy. Tell us about this book. I mean, I got a little sneak peek on it, and I think it's really cool. You get to basically you're giving the beach volleyball fans or fans of the sport a good perspective on what it's like to be a player and come up through the ranks of this sport, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because you also have been coming up as a player through this same story that you had written about, but at the same time that you were writing the story.
Yeah. It's a lot of it, it's made me feel better about myself because everyone goes through this. Even Phil, so the book is basically, it's a walkthrough of what a lot of people do, how they make it through qualifiers to where they are now. Phil Dahlhauser lost in 4 or 5 qualifiers and got knocked out. So hearing stuff like that from their mouths made me feel a lot better about myself when I lost my first qualifier 21-9, 21-16 to Rafi.
And now look at you now. You got an automatic main draw bid to a legit professional event.
Yeah.
Right? That's how we got Travis. Travis wasn't going to allow himself to come on the show until he got his
my
first
rule.
auto.
Until I got to play in a main draw without qualifying, I couldn't actually talk about myself on the podcast. That was the rule.
That's fair.
But yeah, so the book is called We Were Kings, which is kind of a nod to that the old school guys who used to make oodles of money, they were called Kings of the Beach. And then now you look at sort of the financial state that beach volleyball has been in for quite a while. It's there's no really Kings of the Beach anymore. But it's taken on a ton of different phases. When I first started playing, whenever I start something new, the first thing I do, just because I'm a huge nerd, is I go try to find the literature on the sport. And with beach volleyball, there was pretty much nothing. St. John wrote a book a really long time ago, and then Billy Strickland wrote a book. I think it was his maybe 2008 season. That's called Inside the Player's Tent, and that was entertaining. Huh. I enjoyed that. And everything else is just drill books. Here's what you can do and it's almost all indoor volleyball.
Ryan Doherty he wrote something.
He did Avatar's Guide to Beach Volleyball.
Right.
But when I first started playing, Ryan had not yet written that. So there was nothing on it. And so I was like, well, why don't I could do that.
Right.
I have the perfect skill set for it. Mm-hmm. I'm a writer. I'm starting to play beach volleyball, and I'm really curious. So I just started asking a ton of questions. And then just over the course of these past 3 years since I moved to California, I've just been basically one by one just collecting players' stories. And basically what it boiled down to, the book's taken on, I went through 15 different drafts of the manuscript, and each manuscript was way different. The first one that I sent you was 120,000 words because it was the entire history from Gene Selznick and the boys putting together a tournament in 54.
Dude, I completely admit I knew nothing about the history of the sport I play.
Yeah, well, it was fascinating to go back through. I went through the LA Times archives. I went to the Newport Beach Library, and read and then whatever was online that came up with the keywords like beach volleyball, or then I would go into specific players. Like I read thousands of LA Times
This is why
stories.
we're lucky to have Travis in the beach volleyball world. Nobody else is going to do this kind of stuff.
And I loved it.
Yeah, and I'm not going to do it. That's for sure. I think that's why originally when I think you interviewed me, and then I probably saw an article or a write-up you did about it and about other players, and I was like, dude, finally, someone that knows how to write but can put it out there in a real way, the way it actually is, you know, not sugarcoating it. And yeah, I think Gabby and I both read something and we're like, dude, this guy needs to do more. So I think I hit you up or something after something like that after the interview, and I was like, dude, keep doing what you're doing, because we need more of that.
Yeah, it's been fun to get that kind of response. And one of the best parts about working on the book is that currently everything in beach volleyball that I have outside of playing, I owe to writing this book. So all the research and stuff that I've done has allowed me to come on this podcast as kind of an expert on the sport, just because I've gone back and researched so much stuff. And I remember Randy Stoklos almost fell over when we had lunch in San Jose. And we were just talking about how this isn't the first time that non-compete contracts have been kind of a controversy.
Right.
It's yeah, well, you and St. John skipped Seal Beach in the 90s and got fined $75,000. And Randy was like, why do you know this?
Yeah. He was probably so excited.
Yeah, I was 2 years old when that happened. So
right.
There's no reason for me to know that. But then so me and Randy just had this really deep conversation about the history of beach volleyball, and he was finally glad to talk to someone of our generation who knew something deeper about it.
Right.
So when I write stories, it comes to me a lot easier because I know I've read all the old school stories, and I know all the names and what happened in the Manhattan Beach Open in 1967, and all this random information. And I'm now just a random stat collection machine from BVB.
That's perfect, though. I just feel so many people in our sport go down the same pipeline and path. And I mean, what are the chances that everyone's specific, unique way of life is the same, but people tend to follow each other anyway. Whereas so you came in and you're well, I'm not going to try to be the top pro right off the bat.
Yeah.
I'm going to play and see where that goes, but I'm going to do what I do really well and bring that to the sport. And like that, climb the ranks. And you competed in a blue ocean rather than a red ocean. There's a book on that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You created your own ocean.
Yeah, basically that's what, and I listened to a lot of Tim Ferriss podcasts, and he had Scott Adams, who's the creator of the Dilbert cartoons that are huge. And he said one thing that's always resonated with me is I'm not the best artist. He goes, and I'm not the funniest guy. He goes, but I am a funny artist, which is a rare combination. And he goes, I'm also a good businessman. So he goes, I'm in the top 25% of business, top 25% of art, and top 25% of comedy. But I am the only one in my category because no one else is in it. And I was like, all right, well, I'm definitely not the best player. And I'm by far not the best writer on the planet, but I'm one of the very few beach volleyball playing writers.
Right.
And now I'm the only beach volleyball playing writer who also podcasts.
Right.
So I've just created a category of one, basically. And so I always get a kick out of it when Madison McKibben, when he introduces me to people at events, he say, this is the best beach volleyball writer. And I'm like, I'm also the worst because I'm the only one.
Yeah, but isn't that great?
Yeah.
Nobody is going to introduce you as the worst beach volleyball writer.
It's a ton of fun too, because, people are super appreciative of it. And for most of sports writing, you take it for granted because everyone does it. You can Google LeBron James and get 1,000 hits on the game that he played last night against the Jazz.
Right.
But for most beach volleyball players, the only news you're going to get is Volleyball Mag. So it's fun to just finally bring a literary light to it.
Yeah.
And it's been cool too because I don't really have anyone to answer to, so I don't have to write stories that I don't want. I've been asked by a bunch of people, why don't you write almost hit pieces on this organization for financial responsibility? I'm like, well, that's not I started writing about beach volleyball to build it up,
right?
And to show how awesome this sport is. And so I'm just not going to write it.
Right. But
no one else is going to.
But you do actually you have caught some heat over the years a little bit, which most players and everyone have your back, but there has been times when you have to just kind of honestly put it out there. And I think that's what's cool too, that you're willing to like actually say what you're feeling, not like sugarcoat.
Because and at the end of the day too, I think what I've come to find is that like my mission as a writer for the sport and as a podcaster is to help build up the players. Because I think if you build up the players, by extension, you're building up the game. And so by not, I've been like accused of being biased to writing towards one organization.
Right.
And then, the opposite, like gave me heat for that. But then that opposite organization looked at the same exact story and were like, oh, you're being biased towards this organization. I was like, we realized that they just said the same thing.
So that means I feel like it means
I'm being pretty objective.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I'm not too concerned about it. Like, I think maybe 5 times in the course of the past 3 years of writing on the sport, people have been like, oh, well, that's like not a fair story or something. Right. And none of it came from the players, which is the only opinions that I care about.
Right. I mean, if you have the players, then
that's all that matters to me. Because and it's been funny too, because as I've kind of risen up as a player and gotten to know you guys on a deeper level rather than just writer, player, and now I can look at like you and say like we've played in the main draw of the same tournament before. Right. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
I've had to tiptoe the line a little bit more carefully about what I write because like now like I know these people and like I'm friends with them and like me and Trevor, like we're hanging out here all the time. Mm-hmm. So now, and like Trevor's not sensitive at all. So like he wouldn't care if I said something and made fun of him. Mm-hmm. But like now, like I have a pretty sarcastic sense of humor. So like if someone takes that the wrong way, now I'm like, oh crap, like maybe I shouldn't have written that.
You get to blast people writing and then you go play against them.
So, and it is funny because like on the beach too, like you always hear who's playing with who and all the partner changes. And I think I've done a pretty good job of not writing partner changes before people were ready to announce them. Like there's already like a handful where like I was talking to Zahn and he let me know like not too long ago about like a guy he's playing with in an upcoming tournament. And he looked at me, he's like, that's not going to be a headline in Volleyball Mag. I said, no.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you're good. It's funny, just like, and like Chase Frischman a few times, and he was just like, you're not going to write that, are you? And so I think I've kind of danced that line pretty well that like, I don't break news like unless players are ready to like break it or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I think it's cool also that, I mean, we basically created our own media platform, right? Or we did. And I see like the players only on NBA. And there's like a lot of things in the sports world that's going towards player-based media. Also, the Players Tribune, who I think Derek Jeter started it. Yeah. Uninterrupted, which is LeBron James's one. And, and then there's us pretty much in the sports world. It's Players Tribune, Uninterrupted, and then the Sandcast.
Definitely. We're right up there. Yeah. Well, it's fun because like you look at the media, because it's so fast-paced and it's 24/7. Like I've seen it as a writer where like my editor will ask me to write a piece like on a tweet that someone sent out. Like, oh, like write a piece on this rumor. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, no one's going to check with that guy. Like if that's actually true. He's like, no, we're just saying like according to this source, it's all aggregation. And that's how you get like this fake news like epidemic that's happening is because it's so fast paced. And it's like if CBS writes one thing and they're getting a lot of hits, well then ESPN's going to pick that up and it'll get a lot of hits. And it turns out like it was just a sarcastic tweet. Yeah, it's like a long game. It's like a huge game of telephone. Yeah, and so what players are doing with what you see with the Players Tribune is they're controlling their own narrative. Mm-hmm. They're saying, well, why would I have to go to an interview and give up the control of the narrative? Like you could take that and completely twist it, which we see all the time. Right. Instead, we could just write it ourselves. Yeah. And that's what I like about the Sandcast too, is that players just come on and like they get to control the narrative of like what they put out and who they are, and just because it's a podcast, like you hear the words like as it comes out, nothing gets taken out of context and twisted. Right. Which I think is really valuable. We're not really asking hard questions either. We're kind of letting them. Yeah, like we cater to the players. Like we want to just build the players up. Because they haven't really had a platform in a while, if ever. I don't really know. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's been. I mean, everyone has their own social media, so they have their own platforms. But yeah, I don't think they've had like people like us actually interviewing them. We're actually players. You're actually a writer. You make the dialogue work, or else if it was just me, it'd just be a total shit show.
But plus you do the write-ups and all the things that make us actually legit.
But I mean, and a lot of times people say, you know, like you do a really good job of, you know, steering the interview. And I was like, yeah, but you know, if this is like a road trip, you know, basically just like the GPS, like I'm getting us to where we need to go, but Tri's in the passenger seat, you're DJing, you're handing out snacks. Like you're the reason that we're in the car in the first place.
We all got our roles.
Yeah. Like this wouldn't be a podcast if you weren't here. Like Taylor Crabb wouldn't be like an awesome interview if you weren't here. Like Taylor Crabb wouldn't just talk to me and open up like the way he did. Like, because you're here, like you have this kind of barrier between like journalists, although I think that's somewhat wearing off with me, is like having, like, I'm a member of the media, you know, because like just being a player now. But like you make it really casual and conversational, which is really valuable because in interviews, like that doesn't happen very often. Like you look at press conferences and they're the most boring things in the world because the players don't say anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's all like question and answer and interview, but you help make it really conversational, which I don't think people totally understand how valuable that is to just a running dialogue. Yeah,
I mean, that's kind of the reason I got into this kind of stuff was I started doing interviews. I don't remember exactly what happened, but, you know, getting better at the sport, and now I'm doing interviews all of a sudden. And when I played overseas indoors, I was doing interviews, and, I mean, the guys interviewing me spoke different languages. So I don't even know if they understand what I'm saying, whatever. You get kind of nervous, and then I'd listen back to my interviews and just like, that just sounds so dumb. Like, just said really, the same thing everyone else says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's boring.
Yeah. So then I saw I saw a few athletes that would just like make interviews really fun. And I thought that was really cool. I remember seeing that Blake Griffin did like stand-up comedy and improv and all that stuff. Yeah. And I was like, that's pretty cool. And I had looked into it a little and realized that would be like the best thing possible to make you more comfortable on the mic. So I went and did that, and just it kind of snowballed into like me wanting to be a part of the media. And then I got lucky and got an autoimmune disease, struck gold, and I was able to be a part of the actual media. And then we started this, but yeah, it's all based on, for both of us, is bringing out those real stories. Like for me, it was I'm on the road with all these people all the time. I know who they are and how good their stories are and how entertaining their personalities are. And I know that everything that's put out there does not show that at all. Like nobody gets to see who they are.
Yeah.
Or to get to know these people. So that was my goal, is to come on here and try to just have those same conversations that I have on the road with them.
Yeah.
And give them a place to let people get to know them, and then have you to make it all actually work.
Yeah, and that's what I love about the book too. So like in its initial form, it was a walk through like the history of beach volleyball, like from like one of the biggest tournaments to start in '54. Like the first beach tournament with like a prize was in 1948, and it was for a pack of Pepsi. We're going to pause real quick for a word from our sponsors who keep the show moving. We are incredibly grateful for all of our sponsors and all of you, the listeners, who keep the show moving and keep moving us forward. We couldn't do it without you. And now it's nuts that how fast the AVP season went by. But since it is over now, it is probably time that you re-upped on your volleyballs. I know that mine have turned to a kind of brownish yellow color, so I know it's time for me to re-up on my volleyballs. I'm sure it is time for you too as well. So go to wilsonvolleyball.com, use the discount code WilsonSand to get 20% off of all purchases at wilsonvolleyball.com. This show is also brought to you, as always, by our guys at volleyballmag.com. They are your daily digital news source for all things volleyball. They got indoor covered. They got beach covered, whether it's from Stad to Hermosa Beach. Ed Chan has the best pictures in the game. Lee Feinswag has the most insightful interviews. Every now and then I contribute something that might be worthless, might be worthwhile reading. I'm not sure, but if you're looking for volleyball news, make sure to go to volleyballmag.com, your daily digital news source for all things volleyball. We would also like to welcome Volley Camp Hermosa as a new sponsor of the show. If you're listening, you've probably heard of Volley Camp Hermosa. It is the place to go to get better at beach volleyball. Whether you are planning a trip to Hermosa Beach, California, the mecca of beach volleyball, or live locally, they have professional coaches to take your game to the next level. For those making the beach volleyball pilgrimage, they offer week-long adult training camps that are the complete beach volleyball experience. If you live locally or you can't join a camp, you can take their weekly classes and or private training. All levels are welcome, from A to AAA to Open. Sign up online at www.volleycamphermosa.com. I'll say that one more time, www.volleycamphermosa.com. Or for more information, you can just give them a call. It is 234-PLAY-VCH. Or you can email them, info@volleycamphermosa.com. We will see you guys on the sand. And of course, we always love our sponsors at PacificCoastWealthManagement.com, because if your financial plan goes beyond making it into the main draw of an AVP volleyball tournament, check out our online planning tool at PacificCoastWealthManagement.com. We all know that you beach volleyball players need to put that oodles of prize money somewhere. You might as well start it with Pacific Coast Wealth Management. So when you get to the site, click on their link, build your financial plan here, and work with a licensed fiduciary advisor who can discuss everything from 401ks, IRAs, life insurance, estate plans, tax strategy, Social Security, investments, or good old stock tips, also known as a lot of stuff that beach volleyball players genuinely don't know a whole lot about, which is why we need the help with our guys at Pacific Coast Wealth Management. Business owners who need to offer benefits, retirement, or pension plans for their employees, partners, or themselves, you can give them a call too. Or 529 college savings or Roth IRA for your kids. Did you know that you can give $15,000 a year to your kid? I know when I was a kid, I wouldn't have minded that. Start with your favorite volleyball player by connecting with us at Pacific Coast Wealth Management on Instagram, or www.pacificcoastwealthmanagement.com, or you can give them a call, 949-637-7052. Again, that is 949-637-7052. A lot of the listeners of the show are professional athletes, and as we all know, you cannot have enough recovery, which is why the show is also brought to you by our good friends at FireflyRecovery.com. So what Firefly Recovery is, it is a wearable device that simulates blood flow throughout the damaged or sore or afflicted area, say a knee. And what you do, you just strap it on, and it helps you recover much faster. So when you are on that 12-hour flight to Stad or a 36-hour trip to South Africa, you can put this on, and you're not going to get that super sore, kind of swollen feeling that you get after you fly on planes. Actually, you can make your trip productive by putting on Firefly Recovery, helping heal up that area, getting off, and you're going to be playing the best volleyball of your life. So give them a visit at fireflyrecovery.com. Let us know what you think, and use the discount code SANDCAST in all caps for a 10% off. All right, that is SANDCAST, all caps, for 10% off at fireflyrecovery.com. And now, back to the show.
Yeah, see, this is why it's important to read the book, to understand. I mean, it's not that historical, right?
Right, so I took the historical stuff, I saved most of it and I'm going to have a second book come out. I'm not putting a date on it because I need a break from writing books for a minute. So I saved most of that, but it's mostly just a look at the players now and how they fell into it. So it's almost all guys' stories, because I was fascinated by, how do guys get into beach volleyball? Because in Maryland, indoor volleyball is not even a thing. How do you get into beach? We played at jungle ball, graduation parties.
You were a basketball player and a golfer, right?
So I played basketball and golf in high school, and then I ended up going to University of Maryland, majoring in journalism, and I played on our club basketball team, club swim, and literally never touched a volleyball until I moved to Florida because I hated the snow. And
you wrote 2 books, one on basketball and one on golf, right?
Yeah, and they're both fiction. So this book is my first swing at nonfiction. Which fiction, in retrospect, is really easy, because when the structure doesn't line up, you can just make stuff up because it's fiction. But with nonfiction, you can't just make things up.
That's a good point.
But I only stumbled into beach volleyball when I think I was 24, when I moved to Florida, and just
And you were in Florida writing.
I was writing for the Northwest Florida Daily News. I was doing college football and high school sports features. And I just stumbled into it when I was 24 just because like I hated the snow and the local bar had beach volleyball. And that's it. So like right then I was like, well, how did Phil Dahlhauser get into it? And Phil is one of the biggest stories in the book. I go pretty deep into Phil's story and how like he was going to be a pharmacist. Like he was going to go to pharmacy school.
Can you imagine?
And until Adam Roberts and Matt Heath played him in a tournament in South Florida, and they were like who is this guy? And Phil was working a construction job, and he like kept banging his knees on the desk, and he was striping roads. And Adam was like, "Why don't you come live with me in my house in South Carolina, rent free? Like you can bring your really fast friend named Nick, and you guys come live with us." And so like Adam showed him the ropes, and they lived together for 2 years. And like Adam like taught him how to be a professional, and he said that Phil was just obsessed with it. And he said that like when they would watch movies, Phil, because like he didn't want to pay attention to a movie for 2 hours, he would just set to himself for 2 hours. And his thing was like learning how to set quiet so like people could watch the movie. And now you look at it and like Phil's the best setter in the world and has been for the past decade.
Best player.
Yeah.
Those two are the top team. That's the thing that's cool too about our media stuff is we bring out those kind of stories. Like you just said, like Phil's obsessed with the game and he would just set all day. Everything you hear about Phil Dahlhauser nowadays is based on his demeanor. Is like he doesn't really want to be there. He doesn't love it. Like a lot of people say that about him, but if you dig deep enough into these stories, there's a reason why he's been so great. Like the guy is obsessed with it.
Like
his demeanor comes off a certain way, but hell, if the media could actually get a hold and give you stories of who this guy actually is and what is, where he comes from, then you can really begin to see why he is who he is.
That's why I had like so much fun doing that because like I first wanted to see why people like how people got into beach volleyball, but then once you look at the financials of the sport, why do you stay in it? Because tangibly there are very few incentives to stay in beach volleyball. Like in Austin, for example, like Rafi and I finished 13th in the entire country. Literally every single team was there, and we made $1,000. And like you look at like you finished 13th in the PGA Tour, for example, like you're making six figures. Right. And like so tangibly, there are very few incentives to stay in this game. So then I began to look into so how'd you get into it? Why are you still here? And that's I think the biggest theme. And I hired an editor, and she's done like a bunch of New York Times bestsellers, and she's awesome. And she helped me structure the book, and she was like, that's what you need to dig into. She's like, the historical stuff, I think that you're going too fast. You should save it. Really wait till you can research it and dive deeper and do a more thorough job so you don't have to go through the timeline so fast. She's like, I want you to just do the players now and like how they got into it and why they're still here, because every player needs a pretty powerful why to stay in this sport. And it was funny too, because before Austin, Rafi asked me, he's like, why do you want to qualify? And I was like, I don't know.
A weird question from your partner.
Yeah, he was like, I just wanted to qualify.
Because I just spent a bunch of money on this.
Rafi was like, that's it? You just want to qualify? That's your only reason? And like, it like kind of hit me pretty deep. I was like, damn. I was like, I don't know. I was like, why do I want to do this? And then like I figured it out, and just like I know it's super cliche to say that it's about the journey, but like you look at like I went to 8 different cities I think I'd never been to. And like you just get to do all these awesome things. Like I ended up in Martinique. I left the country for the first time, and ended up like if we hadn't gotten a sponsor to cover our flights, I would have lost like $1,000 on the trip easy.
Right.
But it's awesome to have that kind of stuff, and everyone has like a different why. And like I love like Casey Jennings. Like his work ethic is insane. Like when he started coming out, he's like, my life was going to be a professional beach volleyball player. Like he was a valet. And he used it as cross-training workouts. So he would park the car and sprint.
Oh, my God.
And then he'd go get another key and park the car and sprint. And he worked, like, at Ace Hardware, like, the spaghetti factory. And, like, you look at these guys, and they go, like, and John Hyden, he was a 2-time Olympian. And when he moved to the beach, he wasn't making a ton of money on the beach. He hung up Christmas lights and put in synthetic turf putting greens as part-time jobs. A 2-time Olympian was putting up your Christmas lights.
He got attacked by someone's dog once, too.
Really?
And luckily he was in enough shape to jump over like a 6-foot
Dude,
fence.
Hyden's interview cracked me up because he was like, you know what I know about what I discovered about people? People are assholes around Christmas. I was cracking up.
That's such a John Hyden statement.
Yeah, but it's just, I really, like, it was just the why people still do this that I was fascinated by. And that's really kind of the crux of the book is why they do what they do. And I think Billy Allen had one of my favorite quotes. He's like, I wouldn't trade this life for a nicer car, a nicer house, for like all the adventures we had.
Totally.
Like not in the whole world. And like one of my favorite stories that I read about was when Billy and Theo won Seattle. but they had to catch a flight to go to Hamburg the next like hours later.
Yeah, I was waiting for him in Hamburg.
And so they won their semifinal, I think, against Avery and Greg Weaver, and they go to the Tacoma International Airport, check their bags, go back, and then they play the final. They had like a 10-minute warm up against Trevor and Taylor, and end up winning the final. Don't even like pose for pictures or anything. Jet back to the airport, barely make their flight. And they're bringing Ketch and Janelle in tow. And when they land in the Frankfurt airport, Rich Lambert's like, "Oh, have you ever been to this airport?" And like, "I've never been to Europe."
Yeah,
like,
that was
are you kidding
crazy.
me? And so like now Billy is making a push for the Olympics, and it's just fun to see like dig into the whys. And that's kind of like what it gets into is just why are you still here when you could finish 6th in the entire country and make $20,000? Because like money's just not it. It can't be.
Right.
It's getting there. Like you're seeing like there's a lot of opportunities in the game right now, but the narrative of the book follows the 2016 season.
Yeah, that's actually really something that kind of stuck with me when I read the parts that you let me read. Was that there's that perspective of like it was like I was looking at your questions that you're writing the whole book about. I was like, why the hell do you guys do this?
Yeah.
Like, I don't get it.
Because like your average person looking at it like would have no idea.
Yeah.
And that's what John Moran offered. I offered perspectives from both sides. And like a lot of the guys are just like, man, like why wouldn't I do this? Like I get to coach on the beach. I get to play on the beach. I'm like, yo, what about like a 401k, raising a family?
Yeah.
Are you gonna be okay? And then and a lot of guys are like, no, like I'll worry about that later.
Right.
But John Moran, like he's not playing anymore, and he looked at it like a business. And he's like, man, I devoted a season where I trained like a professional. I did all this stuff, and I had like the best year ever. He had like 4 9ths and like 2 13ths, like a good year. Like, and if you compare it to any other sport in the country, like he'd have been a millionaire.
Right.
So he's like, I netted $12,000, and he's like, "Are you kidding me?" And then he made. I mean, he's sold a couple businesses, and like he made $75,000 in a month, which was more than what Casey and Jake made the entire year combined from prize money. And he looked at that and he was like, "What? I'm out." Like, and so he just like, and he was like, what? I feel like I left a lot on the table as a volleyball player, but as a person raising a family, I think I made the right choice.
Right.
And you see, like every player that I interviewed has wrestled with that decision. Like, how can I reasonably, logically explain to prioritize this sport over getting a real job?
Right. And I think it's crazy to see how many different perspectives there are. Like,
yeah. There's some,
people
everyone
are
has
coming
a different
from every direction.
Yeah.
Like that's why when you asked me to write the foreword for it, I was like, well, I'm just going to tell you what I think about it because it seems to be a lot different than what everybody else thinks. And I mean, you guys can read that. I don't even remember what I wrote at this point.
My editor and agent both loved the foreword. So
it's like the first time I've written anything that anyone's going to read. So I hope it's good. But yeah, I think I have a really unique perspective where I'm coming from because I came from the indoor side. There's a portion of people that come from the indoor side where you're already a professional athlete, basically playing another sport. And then you're coming out and expecting it to be the same or whatever. For me, and I'm kind of trying to create that dream life, that life that I kind of dreamed of as a kid, being a professional athlete. I've always wanted to do that. So I'm like, well, I'm just going to go do it as well as I can and then see what happens. But that's my goal, is to be like a full-on world-class professional athlete. If I'm not on ESPN every day, okay, that's fine. But I might try to get there because it's kind of cool. Yeah.
And you have a really cool story, too, in that like you got picked up by Hayden, and that could have been
right. I mean, look at that. How's my grind compared to some other people's?
Yeah, but I mean, you were putting it in for a long time. Like people don't understand how valuable reps are when you're a kid.
Yeah, totally.
You get that muscle memory when you're little. Like I could go out. Like I hadn't played golf in 4 years, and I came out and shot 76.
Right.
Because like I played so much golf when I was a kid. Like
I
it
can
just
go play
comes back
for
and like
6 months straight, and then you'll just come out and beat me.
Yeah, and like
your reps
it's
are
the same
way
way
beyond.
with like me and you. Like your golf is my volleyball.
Right.
Like if I take 2 days off, dude, I can't pass it in the right zip code
right.
for like an hour.
Yeah. Exactly.
But like you were grinding, you just didn't even realize it was grinding because you're having fun as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And, like you were getting your reps on the baby court. And I'm pretty sure my favorite chapter in the whole book is like there's a chapter pretty much devoted to the Hawaiians, and just about like it was Reese Haynes' birthday party.
Oh my God!
And it had
Reese is gonna be so stoked when he hears he made the book.
And when I was talking to my editor about this chapter, she was like, "Holy shit!" Like you're talking about Taylor Crabb, Trevor Crabb, you, Riley, Madison. I think the Shojis, Micah Christensen. Well, Micah wasn't there.
Micah was younger, but we
like
had
later. Like you guys, there's like 4 Olympians. You qualified
Spencer
for
McLaughlin.
the Olympics. Spencer,
yeah. It's crazy.
Your childhood group of friends is one of the most accomplished group of people like in the sport of volleyball, and you grew up walking distance.
Like we played on the same little court.
Yeah,
there's only 3 courts at Outrigger.
It's like unfathomable how talented that group of kids is.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't even understand how I became a part of that group. It's just because I was a beach rat and just hung out down there.
It's so cool to see like where you guys are now, and like I love looking at stuff like that. And then I also love digging into the people who got out of the sport. Like you look at Robbie Page.
Right.
Like Robbie Page had all the tangibles to be one of the best in the world. Mm-hmm. Like he's 7 foot and he could hand set, sided out well, passed really well, was the AVP server of the year and rookie of the year, I think. And like you look at it, like if he had say like the working mindset of like an Anders, like Robbie could have been our Anders. Like he just looked at it logically, and I literally never blame anybody for like getting out. Yeah, but I like when someone gets out of the sport and people are mad at him. I'm like, well, logically speaking, that's what he should be doing.
I respect that so much. I think if you can somehow not follow just the social norms, of the pipeline of where people are taking you, I think that's the biggest thing. Is like stay true to yourself and your unique path. Yeah. And don't if you think you got to get out of volleyball, even though you're good at it, bail.
And I think that when you look at the American males who have been the most successful have been the ones who have straddled that really hazy borderline of reckless and responsible the best. So like Phil didn't just win a tournament in South Florida and think, oh, I'm going to be best in the world. I'm going to go to California and live on couches and go broke. Like that's how people break in volleyball. Like I know that you played a lot with Will Montgomery and he just went nuts for like a couple years and played in a bunch of country quotas.
That's how I got all my reps. That's how I made up all my reps. I just hung out with Will.
Yeah, so you look at there are certain people who go way all in with no safety net too fast, and they get burned out and broken because you're going to fail, and if you don't have anything to hold you up while you're failing, you're going to drop out of the sport. Yeah, that's why and people give Madison McKibben a lot of crap for putting too much time into YouTube and not kind of bouncing around and doing the partner thing, but Madison's now going to be a full-time beach volleyball YouTuber pretty much. That's
they
badass.
Created their own,
that's awesome.
Exactly, it's really cool. They created their own little unique, same thing we're doing, our own little path, our niche or whatever you call it. Yeah. And I think every player should do that. Find their own unique thing to build up. And not many sports have that actually, where the players are the ones creating these things.
Yeah. And I think that's what's so fun about writing for this sport is that it's all new ground. Because you look at, and I think Volley Mob just folded, so I'm pretty sure the only website for beach volleyball is the FIVB Beach Major Series and volleyballmag.com. Right. And I've written for all 3. It's fun. And it took this has been a 3-year process. The first year I wrote on the sport, I wrote for free. I just started a WordPress blog and just wrote because it's just what I do. Right. I just love writing, and no one was writing about the sport. And the first one that I wrote was on the Huntington Beach qualifier of 2017. And I just did a preview of it, a preview of March Madness. And the players were like, dude, that was so cool. We've never had that done before. So then I just kept doing it. And Volleyball Mag, one of my friends that I'd made while I lived in Florida knew the editor of Volleyball Mag. And he's like, you got to read this stuff. And he called me. He's like, why is a 443 Baltimore area code writing about beach volleyball? He's like, what are you doing? Really? And so I ended up just writing for them. And then that turned into, I wrote for Dig Magazine. And then that turned into, I wrote for someone else. And then we have the podcast. And then now I'm writing stuff for P1440. And I've been able to slowly streamline my work and income and around beach volleyball. And whatever I win as a player is just a bonus. I never budget for a surplus of prize money. Right. So that's awesome when it happened.
And I think it gives you a good perspective on yourself in terms of like if you're willing to do it for kind of nothing, then you know that you're kind of on the right path.
Yeah.
Right? Especially if there's the potential to make money.
Right. And that's like kind of what our podcast is. Like,
right.
It's not like we're making millions of dollars, but the potential is there because we're the only ones.
Right. Yeah.
It's nice when you're a monopoly.
Potential for millions of dollars on this. If someone wants to start donating,
we got chomps.
Yeah, we got chomps. Woo. Yeah, I think it's pretty awesome, the path that has kind of taken us here, and McKibben's doing their thing, and I think it's really good for the sport. And the more players that jump on and create their own unique thing it's going to be even better.
Yeah.
And I think the sport's going somewhere. I don't know where it's going, but it's moving.
Well, what I like about it is that it's moving so many different directions, and that something has to stick. Like whether it's like, and I think the AVP will always be around. I think like it is the name brand. Mm-hmm. Whether what iteration it takes, who knows? But like you have King of the Court, and they're jumping in, and like we had Wilco on, and he's like stoked about beach volleyball and where it's headed. And then P1440's jumping in, and they're doing like kind of different stuff and partnering with the FIVB. So it's going a lot of different directions. Like at some point, somebody's going to figure this out because no one has. But there are a lot of brilliant minds working on it.
And I think once the storyline catches, like you're like following a sport, or maybe there's like, for example, my wife or something. Doesn't watch basketball or football or anything, but then like there's like one story that comes up and they play it and whatever, and then all of a sudden she's interested in that one player and wants to follow that. I think we just got to kind of figure out the right storyline, the things that fans are most interested in to buy in, and let that, and give them more of that. It's kind of hard for people to see into our sport right now, I think.
Yeah.
So that's why I think like your book is going to give people a really good perspective on, it's basically you're the fan, right?
Yeah.
You're the guy that knew nothing about our sport.
I wrote the book that I wanted to read.
And you're a sports writer. So you knew how to like dig into a sport and like figure stuff out about it. And you're like, oh, there's nothing.
Yeah.
So then you came in and you played it, and then you're like, all right, I'm going to go check out the pro scene.
Yeah.
You went into the pro scene, you're like, this is weird. And then you're like, all right, I'll just create it, what I wanted to know. Right?
Yeah, that's what basically, because that's how a lot of nonfiction books because I read a ton. Like I try to read like a book or two a week, and I'll always read like the author's notes afterwards. And a common theme is that I wrote the book that I wanted to read that no one had written, and this is like exactly what I was looking for. Like, why does a lefty from Minnesota get into beach volleyball?
Right.
Like,
totally.
And why is he sticking with it?
That's probably the biggest theme, right? The biggest takeaway from the book is kind of that you get to learn that about the sport. And I think, dude, people, you need to go buy this book. Buy one for your friends, family, anyone that likes beach volleyball. Let's get everyone on this train. You get to understand what this sport's all about. And then we'll have them write another one after that.
Exactly. Yeah. You can get it'll be on Amazon on December 5th, which is the day that this comes out, which is nice.
Well, something else cool that you did in the book was you picked real athletes, like certain athletes at different parts of the sport. You already talked about Phil and Billy Allen, but there's other guys that were just straight up quality guys, or like rookies on tour, and you kind of told everyone's story along the way. So you get to learn a little history about it, but also about exactly what's going on. It's in the 2016 season, so it's a season that already passed.
Yeah, so each chapter is a stop on the 2016 season, and each chapter is kind of a different facet of beach volleyball. So, like, the first chapter is AVP New Orleans, which I don't know if anybody was there remembers, but AVP New Orleans was a shit show. Like, rain, so that we played it at Coconut Beach.
So glad I wasn't there.
And it was like a monsoon, like torrential downpour, and you got out there and, like, you could swim on the courts before you could play. So
that's the first experience of this guy from Maryland who went to go figure out what the hell this beach volleyball thing was. He's like, and the tournament's flooded and they're playing in mud.
And
like,
our matches
our
matches were shortened because, like, I mean, you had to deal with daylight and stuff. So our matches were shortened to games to 11, 11, and 7.
How did you not just think it was a complete joke and leave?
And well, the player reactions on Facebook were pretty hilarious. Like they were furious. And they're like typical AVP, like all this stuff. I was like, oh God, what am I getting into? But yeah, like our match was like we went to 3 sets and it was like 15 minutes. I was like, holy shit. But yeah, I mean, you start in AVP New Orleans and it's just about like how hard it is to make it through a qualifier. And I think the guys who I dig into there are Chase Frischman and Mike Brunsting, who were just short. Like they lost to Marty and Adam in the final round in 3 sets. And Brunsting, Chase like got a dig, and Brunsting went to set it for match point and doubled it. And that's where like the book pretty much starts. Like Brunsting is sitting in the hotel room with his girlfriend. Is like, I can't pay thousands of dollars to fly across the country to double a ball on match point because you lose in the qualifier. Like. You don't get a hotel.
Right.
You don't get prize money. Like you really don't get that many points.
It's either I gotta quit or I gotta get way better. I gotta put way more time in and act like a real professional athlete.
Yeah, and like so Brunsting at the time was like weighing between going to med school or like continuing to push for beach volleyball.
Imagine having that in your head, med school, like and what's like picturing what your future is gonna be, and then being like,
beach
all right, but what's my day to day gonna be playing beach volleyball, and then my future, I'm picturing living in a van, but getting there is going to be way more fun.
Yeah, and so it's just like moments like that, just how hard it is to make it through a qualifier. But then the second chapter is once you made it through, oh, good luck, you get to play Phil. And so you get in the main draw, you get your ass kicked. And next tournament, hey, now congratulations, you've improved 1 seed in the qualifier. You're right back in it.
Right.
And just how hard it is to not only just make a main draw, but to stay in it. It's really hard because like, dude, after Austin, so my brother called me and was like, so what, like your automatic main draw? I was like, actually, I dropped 5 seeds for New York. And he was like, how does that work? I was like, this is just the way it goes.
Your brother's like, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
I'll let you do that.
Yeah. And and then it just kind of takes you through each different stop. And then one of the chapters goes into like how difficult it is to like for dads and moms and dads, like living on like an AVP salary, raising kids.
How many players have heard from their parents like, get a real job? What are you doing?
Yeah, well, it's funny. Jake and Jane Gibb were great interviews. I love talking to them, and so they moved here with like knowing. Jake had no idea like what the status of the AVP was. He's like, yeah, like, I think like, you guys are millionaires. Like he didn't know that like Fenoy won like half the tournaments the year before and made like $60,000. Like in Southern California, it's not a ton of money to be the best in the world.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. So him and Jane had like a 2-year window. And Jane's his wife. And she was like, yeah, if you can go do your beach thing for a couple of years, it'll be fun. And like, you'll get a real job. We'll probably move back to Utah. And then Jake got picked up by Stein and he made like $110,000. And Jane was like, what is happening? She's like, how is this possible?
Yeah.
So like a lot of guys, like they just they go in with no plan. And we had Mayer on, not too long ago. And he said, yeah, I thought I'd just play for a couple of years and get into it. And then he realized that like, oh, like this could work if I put the time into it. So it's just like straddling that line between responsible, going to med school, or sort of reckless and going for this beach dream. And the best have been able to find that kind of Goldilocks zone where they master it and like they're able to sustain it throughout the years. Because like Jake Gibb had no plans of being like a full-time professional beach volleyball player. He thought he was going to get a real job. And now here we are, and Jake's like one of the best of all time.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking about last year, or these last 2 years. It's like, I should be getting a job right now.
All right, it is the holiday season, so it is giveaway time, and I will be giving away 5 free books, my new book, We Were Kings, to the 5 listeners who me and Tri pick as the winner of this contest. So in order to enter the contest, you need to tag us a picture of you either playing beach volleyball or doing something with beach volleyball. Mention that you are excited about the book and how you got into beach volleyball, and why you continue to play, why you love beach volleyball. And then we will pick the 5 that we like the most, and you will get a free book, We Were Kings. So Merry Christmas. Looking forward to seeing your responses, and happy reading.
But instead, I'm going to like double down and just commit.
Yeah, but like even
coming back.
Even if like you didn't necessarily get a job, you expanded your skill set, which is just as valuable.
Right. No, totally.
Probably more valuable in the long run.
I agree. But like I legitimately was thinking about it for a while. Like I had plenty of time to think. And I don't know what I would do if I didn't play.
And that's
a pretty scary feeling when first of all, you can't play your whole life. So it's going to have to happen eventually.
Yeah.
And second of all, there's injuries, there's health and all that kind of stuff. It can get taken away at any second. But to know that when it does get taken away, I still wanted to go right back to it rather than just give up on it. Makes me know now I'm committed even deeper.
Yeah.
Because I knew that this is like the path I wanted to go on for sure.
And that's one of the things that Ed Ratledge, another phenomenal story in beach volleyball, because like you look at his prize money and you're like, why is he still playing?
Right.
Like, how is he still doing? But he was one who like he saw a path and he built a business around the sport that he loved, so he could just be at the beach all day long. Mm-hmm. And like he's been in it. Like Ed wanted to be a pilot. Could you imagine Ed Ratledge as a pilot? He's the biggest pilot in history.
He would be. It'd be scary, but he would probably have the best captain dialogue on the intercom.
Oh, by far. For sure.
Better than any.
Like you think you're just
pilot.
getting on a 5-hour flight from LAX to New York. No, sir. You're here for the Ed Ratledge comedy special.
Yeah. He'd be talking to you the whole time.
Yeah. So like he was able to streamline what he wanted to do and put it all under the same umbrella. So like his business, Volley OC, is like booming. Like he has like a monopoly on beach volleyball in Orange County. Like the junior scene is like wildly profitable because you don't pay prize money.
I mean, if I was a kid, I would love playing for Ed, He probably makes it so fun.
Ed's like a great coach. He's been like one of the biggest influences, like, because he was one of the first him and Ty Tremblay were the two pros that I met first, and like phenomenal human beings. And that's what, like, you look at a lot of these guys, they're able to, like Mark Burek, similar thing with Volley Camp Hermosa.
Totally.
Like, he's a player, like prize money, no way he can make a career on that, but he took his acumen as a player and turned it into a business. And now he's able to live as a beach volleyball player.
Right.
And that's sort of like, in a way, what I've been working towards, in that now I've pretty much cut out almost all but like 2 of my writing and like media jobs. Everything else is beach volleyball.
That was my that's what I was telling you. I was like, dude, the goal has got to be to make it so you don't have to go watch college football all day and write about it.
This is the first fall since I was 16 years old that I did not cover a football game. It was great. I got to watch football for fun.
Yeah, dude.
Because I get to write for beach volleyball.
It sounded grueling. Yeah, I think it's awesome. And look how many people have, you kind of think of it, and you're like, well, when you get to the end of your career, you're going to have nothing to fall back on and get a job with or whatever. But in reality, like, we're out there grinding and learning so many different things. I mean, I deal with an agent. I deal with companies. I'm building my own brand. I'm doing this media thing. I'm my own travel agent, basically. You learn how to travel and get all the miles and credit cards, and like there's a lot. There's a lot that we learn within this business, and because we're not NBA players where I'm making $80 million and I hire someone for that, hire someone for that. So I just show up and I go and show up at games and just show up at practice, and everyone tells me what to do and where to go and takes care of my dishes and everything. Instead, I get to be a real human, take care of myself, learn everything about life, and now I'm going to come out of it. Hopefully, I keep building on it, and the longer I play, the more I can learn and be even more ready than I would be otherwise.
Well, I think this sport, like, above all, like, it teaches you some of the most critical life skills, and that's like independence, self-reliance, and resilience.
That's so valuable.
Yeah, which is incredibly valuable. And Jake, you mentioned that you're developing skills. Like Jake right now is about to finish up his master's. He's getting a master's, I think, in education. Because when I was talking to him, he's like, like they always say that an athlete dies twice. Right. Once when he has to retire and figures out, like, crap, like, what am I going to do? And then, like, the other death is like real death, but like that's a big gap. Like, you got to figure out something to do.
Right.
And so now, like, Jake's getting his master's, and like he's got a bona fide skill set. And you see, like, Phil Dahlhauser's building a beach facility, so he's got something that's going to fall back on.
I didn't know that.
And in I think Orlando.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then you look at a lot of former players right now getting into coaching. Todd Rogers up at Poly and Steins at UCLA, which is going to be a really big avenue, because the college game is only going to get bigger with the success that it's had.
And I hear you're getting into coaching a little bit. You want to?
Trying to, yeah. Which is because, like, now I've seen what it's like to have my day. Like, I've had a few weeks where like my days were literally just on beach volleyball. And like once you see the light, you can't go back.
That's possible.
Like I've now whittled my office hours down to 15 hours a week. And I'm in an office for 5 hours, which is nothing compared to your average American. And I'm losing my mind. Because like now that I've been, and like I used to be in an office for like 50, 60 hours a week during football season. And like, that was normal, but now that it's down to 15, and I'm like, get me out of here. I got to go to the beach.
You got to get it to 0.
Yeah.
I mean, you can take your laptop anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Like I can work basically from anywhere.
I think something that comes to mind for me when I think of like your whole story is, well, first of all, I don't think people realize how good of a player you are. Most people, because you always get labeled as the writer, right? Madison introduces you, hey, this is the best writer.
Yeah, it was funny because like writing about it kind of came with like some like backhanded compliments in that like they say, oh, like you're not that bad for a writer. I was like, shit, I just want to be good. I don't want to be good for a writer.
Yeah.
And so it ended up like that was kind of a motivation because like I wanted to prove myself as a player to show that like I'm not just a gimmick writer, just like going out on the beach and like losing and writing about it.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to actually like get good.
Yeah, and for me, I think I gave you some compliments at your game when I first saw you. I was like, dude, you're actually
about fainted.
Yeah, you're actually good at this game. Plus, for me, what stood out to me was that you're an athlete. You understand athletics, and golf. First of all, is the gnarliest mental game in the world, and I very much think that beach volleyball is a total mental game. And just like any sport, but also basketball, the physicality, the footwork, angles, and just a team sport, that kind of thing. Playing those things at a high level is extremely valuable. And you know how to play those games. You understand the ins and outs of it. You wrote about it. And I know what that's like now to like stand outside of the sport and watch it and have to figure out exactly what's going on. I think that's super valuable, and that's what's made your climb actually super fast compared to how long have you been playing now?
About 4 years.
4 years, and like now you're like running the media world of it and making main draws, and you didn't even play before. I was a professional athlete. I was a professional volleyball player before you even knew what volleyball was, basically. But all those things like that, sports in the ins and outs of sports probably better than anyone on tour. That's what's kind of helped you make this rise quick, and I also think that's what's makes you have one of the highest upsides out of all the players coming out of the qualifier, because you talk to a lot of these other guys and you can tell they're young. They haven't played under pressure. They haven't played in these matches that a lot of us indoor guys got to go. I played at SC. I played overseas indoors. I played basketball in high school at the highest level. Some of these guys just played beach volleyball, and there's a lot to be said about just understanding athletics at a higher level. Yeah. You have that. You just need to figure out beach volleyball now.
Yeah. No, the mental side of it and like the strategizing, I love that stuff. Because that's like, I know that I have to be good at it. Like with where I am skill wise, like I need that to win matches that I shouldn't win. Like late in the third set against the McKibbins in Hermosa, like the McKibbins called a timeout, and I think we were up 15-14.
Is that the one when Madison punted?
Yeah, Madison. We wouldn't have won that if he didn't punt the ball. Like it's pretty funny, but we were up 15-14, and they called timeout. And I told Hagen, I was like, I'm gonna serve Madison down his line. He hasn't hit a cut shot.
I'm hoping that he punts it, but if he hits a cut shot,
it's like he has not hit a single cut shot the entire match. I was like, if you see him shooting, if you see him drop his elbow, get to the line. Like, if you see him barreling in hard, just take a step in the angle. I'll take the seam. And that's exactly what happened. And Hagen was like, afterwards, he's like, how'd you know that? I was like, you just have to watch. And just like every single point is a data point. And I learned that from basketball. You learn to find tendencies on guys. Because like I'm a slow white farm boy. Like we played in AU tournaments where we were the only white team. Like you had to think your way through games to win.
Yeah.
And then golf with like the mental resilience part of it. Like you could be having the worst day and shanking everything, but you have to finish all 18 holes. You have to find a way to grind and win. And like that's, I think, one of the things that me and Hagen did so well is that we just grinded our way. Like, even when we were playing terrible, which is mostly my part, like, you just had to, like, think your way through it because, like, you have to finish the match anyway. You might as well win. You got to think your way. And in Martinique, so Ben and Brandon didn't really talk strategy too much when they played together. And then, I was talking to Ben after every point. And there were times where, like, we intentionally doubled up just because I was like, well, if I showed him really early what I'm doing here, and he popped one over me like 2 times in a row. So, like, I'm going to show him early, and I want you to double up on the angle with me. And he did that, and then he had a really easy cut, like, dig of a cut shot, shoot set. There was no blocker. He just bounced it, and he's like, how'd you know that? I was like, just pay attention.
I never thought that much into it before.
Yeah, and he said that. He's like, this is really fun.
But how much longer has he been playing? How much longer has
Well, Ben's
Clemens?
Also, like, really, he's young, too. Like,
right,
he
but
hasn't,
Clemens
like,
played, didn't he play for Harvard?
Played at Harvard,
right,
yeah.
so he's been playing the sport of volleyball a lot longer than you. But
yeah, but I also think that for people who are a lot more skilled, they can lean on that more, and they don't need to, like, I know that I need that strategy
that
part
hurts
of
you
it.
sometimes, though.
Yeah.
In the long run, it hurts you when you have so much talent that you just lean on it, and you don't put in the work for all the small intangibles.
Yeah, but I love, like, the strategy part of it. I think it's so fun to find a tendency and then to go back and, like, pretty much call out exactly what's going to happen and it for it to be true. Right. I mean, of course, like, the opposite happens a lot of times too, and, like, you get burned by it. But more often than not, like, if you come up with a play based on tendencies you picked up on over a match, 2 matches, like 3 tournaments, and, like, you're going to win 60% of them, which in volleyball is really valuable because, like, you should side out about 80% of the time you're in system.
And another thing that helps you, I think, is you're willing to fail, first of all, and you're willing to laugh at yourself and, like, just be like, yeah, whoop, that was dumb. Yeah. And then just move on. You know, I think people that are able to admit that are able to move on really quickly. And, I mean, volleyball is a sport of imperfection. Like, you pretty much shank it somewhere that you're not aiming every time. It never goes exactly where you're aiming. Yeah. So you got to just kind of be able to go with the flow. And I think you do a really good job with that.
Yeah, and I think with, like, golf, I think that everyone should, when they're kids, should play golf to learn how to deal with failure. Because golf is definitely a sport of failure, and you have to, like, grind and stay in it. It's like, and you're out there for 5 hours.
It's like, how much can I not suck?
And yeah, basically,
that's how you have a good day.
I always got nervous when I played really well. Like, when I would shoot like 2 under on the front nine, I'd be like, oh God, when's it coming? But, like, when you're playing bad and, like, you figure out, like, what you need to do to make it work,
right?
Like, that's really good mentally. Because I remember, like, the proudest my dad has, like, ever been of me, I think, is when I like state tournament, maybe my sophomore year of high school. So you only start 4 players and you keep all 4 scores. So, like, even if you have the worst day, you still keep it. Whereas in normal high school matches, you start 4 or you start 6 and keep 4. So you get to drop your 2 worst. Yeah. But states, like, you have a shitty day. Like, you screwed your whole team. And I shot a 49 on the front nine, just 13 over. Like, tragic. And, like, I could have folded it in, but I ended up shooting 1 under on the back and, like, just held it together. And my dad was like, that's the proudest I've ever been to you. I was like, Dad, I shot 84. Yeah. And he was like, yeah, but you held it together. He's like, that's awesome.
Totally. Those are the
having that
skill
set. Like, I think that's probably more valuable than, like, being able to pass or set. It's just, like, when you're having the worst possible day, you just have to figure out what you need to do to win. Like, if you have to switch and play left side, like, Troy and Chase beat the shit out of us in the first set in Hermosa. So I just played left. I hadn't played there since, like, the first couple of weeks I moved to California, and it worked because a left on left is so bizarre. Dude, I wasn't playing any better. I was just weirder.
These are the things that I'm talking about, though. Like, people don't realize. It's like, these are the things that turn matches. These are the small things that over the years I've just been like, all right, like, you're probably better at this than me, but I think I'm going to beat you just because I've played so many sports in my life and I get how they work. And I'm just going to use all that experience for this sport. Yeah. You know, I'm someone who, same as you. Like, I think I wrote about it in the foreword. Like, I've paddled and
you played everything.
Sailed and soccer and literally every sport. Like, I don't even think of myself as a beach volleyball player specifically. I think of myself as like an athlete. I just love activities. And all that stuff has come into play in my career, 100%.
Yeah. And that's what Tim Baumgren mentioned that too. And that, you know, you see a lot of athletes these days, especially basketball players, they specialize when they're in like 5th grade. Mm-hmm. You know, they're playing like AAU, and then they're playing on their like grade school teams, and then in between they're also playing club and whatever. And that's also why you see a lot of like ACL injuries. Like you said, it's a new record every year because so many kids are specializing, and you're just abusing the same muscles over and over. But you're also not developing different skill sets. And like beach volleyball, like you need to have every skill set of every sport in the book. Like you need to move laterally, up and down. You need to have that hand-eye coordination, like pretty delicate touch. Like indoor, you can specialize and basically just like be a goon and beat balls. But beach, you can't do that.
True. It's a pretty unique sport in that way.
And it's on the beach, which is awesome.
It's funny because I think of beach volleyball, and I'm extremely biased, so I can't really have a neutral mindset and think about it. But I try to think of like the most well-rounded sport in the world, or like whatever, where you're really doing you're practicing physicality, finesse, endurance, conditioning, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, beach volleyball has got to be like, that.
It's like
exactly.
that in like the
Teamwork,
decathlon.
everything. It doesn't have like the 5, 6 man, 11 man team, like huge teams. That's one thing it doesn't have. And shoot, we play in like 105 degrees sometimes, like extreme heat, literally where people are getting blisters on their feet. So there's that.
Dude, I just grew back my pinky toe from Manhattan.
The whole toe?
Just the nail.
But it's a really unique sport in that way. I mean, I miss like basketball and all those other sports for those small things. But man, it's a pretty incredible sport. So since I'm the interviewer, I got questions.
I see the post-it note over there.
Yeah.
It's weird being on this side of it. I'm not used to it.
Well, I just wanted to hear your kind of recap of your career so far and coming all the way to where you're at with Sandcast and where your career's at. What's kind of the most impactful moment for you so far?
Most impactful moment. Qualifying in Austin was big, and not in the sense that like I qualified. That really helped. Like qualifying and getting like kind of the monkey off the back and knowing that I could do it was big, but it made me kind of dig deeper and realize that like I'm gonna need something more than just like qualifying and being a beach volleyball player, because like
I did that way too quick.
It's just not enough. Yeah, well, I remember when I was in Florida and I was moving to California, I was like, my goal was literally to make one main draw, and I was like, then I'll quit and I'll be fine. Like I'll be happy with my beach career and whatever. But then you see like how much more you have left and what you can accomplish. Mm-hmm. And that was big because it also just sort of tore down like this giant grand mythology I'd built up of being an AVP main draw player. Right. Like, I remember watching in that New Orleans tournament, watching like Avery Drost and Ty Trambly warm up, and I was like, oh my God, they were just like peppering. Like, look how good these guys are. And then now, like, I was there. Like, I took the same exact finish they did in New Orleans in Austin. Mm-hmm. And like, I tied with Sean Rosenthal in a tournament. And just like stuff like that it just made me realize that like, if I got here in 4 years, like what can I do in another 4? And then I was like, all right, well, I got to figure out like, how can I get more time on the beach? And so I started reworking like almost my entire life and just tinkering like with different jobs and different hours and what I could do to make it work. And now like, it's weird that like financially, like I'm in like the most comfortable I could have been while working the least amount possible. All because like Austin made me realize, and like you were pushing me for that too. Like Austin made me realize that like, if I'm able to dedicate enough time like as a professional should, then like you could get pretty good at this sport.
Dude, if you're doing what you love to do, you have so much more energy to put towards it that more wealth comes to you. It's just the way it works. So you got to be willing to take that leap.
Yeah, because when you do stuff that you love, you just do a better job.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just better at the bottom line. Like,
and you can do it twice as long.
Yeah.
So think of that over the years. You're going to be really good at whatever it is. And if you're really good at deciding those things that are very unique to you, like we were talking about earlier, you're going to create something that only you can do. And then you become super good at that. And then you become rich. I'm going to write a book, people.
Yeah. But
anyway.
I think too, one of the most valuable things was honestly losing in Hermosa of 2017. Because Hermosa, like, I had a really good draw. And everyone, and this is like, if you have friends who are in qualifiers, don't ever text them and say, I love your draw. like you're gonna make it. It's the worst thing you could possibly hear, because then you're like,
all the time.
Like there's no easy draw in a qualifier. Like there's no way.
Every smart player would be like, just give like a really vague answer.
Yeah, and I texted him back. I was like, thanks.
Still got to win.
I guess, yeah.
Still got to win.
But like at the time, like I didn't realize that. Like I looked at my draw. I was like, hell yeah, like this is a great draw.
You can't get sucked into.
And
it.
then like we lost in the third round. And like I was like crushed. I was like, shoot, like I'm literally never going to make a main draw. Like if I can't do it. And like at the time, you know, in retrospect, I've been playing 3 years. Like, why would I think I could make a main draw? It's stupid. But then, like, on, like, this volleyball forum called Volley Talk, there was, like, a thread. It was, like, when is Mewhirter going to give it up? Like, if you can't make it through that draw, my editor called me, and I saw it. I was like, damn. So then I, like, wrote about it, and I was, like, pretty heated. I was like, why would I quit now? I was like, I just made it to the third round of a qualifier. Like, I've been playing for 3 years, and, like, a year of that was at a bar in Florida. Like we were so drunk when we played half the time.
we were
playing. Like
we were blacked out half the time.
It wasn't like volleyball from like most of the time. And like, so then when I wrote that, like I was almost convincing myself like, you're okay. Mm-hmm. And like writing about that, like opened my eyes that like should take time. Like if everyone could just pick up a volleyball in 3 years and qualify, like it's probably not worth your time. Mm-hmm. Like okay, well it should take a little bit longer than this anyway. Mm-hmm. It's like losing and really like inspecting your losses is one of the most valuable things you can do. Like why did this happen? What does this mean? What can I do to fix it? Do I want to fix it? Right. Because like once you get to a point where you don't care about losing, then maybe it's time to start exploring different paths.
Right. Totally.
But like in Huntington this year. Like me and Skylar McCoy were up like 12-8 on this Norwegian team, and dude, I just tanked. You were there. Mm-hmm. I like doubled, got tooled,
saw that,
hit a line shot out, dropped my hands, and he just bounced it over me.
Yeah, dude, and you definitely take losses hard. Yeah. I guess I do too. I've thrown a lot of things.
I take them a little bit better now that there's not so much riding on each one. Just because like I've made a main draw, I know I can do it, and I know it's not like another setback. Like maybe you can't do it. Like that voice is no longer in the back of my head. Mm-hmm. But now, like say a loss maybe on a Friday afternoon to keep me from making a Saturday, like those will hit a little bit harder now that I've been to a Saturday. Right. So like in Huntington, P1440, for example, like if I don't make Saturday, then like that's going to hurt as if I lost in the qualifier. Exactly. So like your standards bump up each time. And then once I make enough Saturdays, then it's going to hit to a point where, well, now I'm going to be pissed off when I make Saturday afternoon and then Sunday afternoon. And then like I can see the steps a little bit more clearly now.
You just need to be moving. To be happy, exactly. You have to be moving forward. It doesn't matter if you're going fast. You're going to go fast sometimes. You're going to probably go backwards sometimes. Yep. But you have to generally be moving forward to be happy. Yeah, I saw a quote the other day. It said, "Walk slowly, but never backwards." Mm-hmm. And that's perfect because, like in beach volleyball, like your progress is going to be really slow, and sometimes you're going to jump up and make a surge, right. And sometimes like you're just going to be crawling, and like your only progress is that you made one better pass in that match. Mm-hmm. But that's progress. Well, plus you go on like these plateaus as well. There's book
for sure.
I'm reading where you're just like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not getting better. But then you push through those times and you get the reps anyway. And then all of a sudden you jump up and you're like, wow, this is awesome. And then you kind of like come back down to earth. Yeah. But that plateau you're on now is just a little bit higher. Yep. So it's just raising that bar a little bit. Yeah. So speaking of raising the bar, where's your goals at now? You said before it was to make a main draw, and then you realized, wow, I achieved that pretty quickly. I guess I got to re-raise it.
Yeah. So now, like a big goal is on
and off the court.
Yeah. So on the court, like my big goals for this year were one to play an international tournament. Got that, Saved by the Bell.
Well, you got to reset that one.
Yeah. So I played an international tournament, came home with a medal, which I didn't expect at all, and then be automatic main draw, which in P1440 Huntington checked that one off. Make a Saturday, made that. So like now at this point in the year, like it's house money, it's kind of whatever. Yeah. But like I really want to make Saturday in Huntington now. Totally. But then so for this upcoming year, like I definitely want to start playing more international stuff. And like I've sent out a few texts, and like I know that Ben wants to keep playing just because we had success. And being lefty, like you're gonna get a couple points just because it's so bizarre. Like no one sees that.
Yeah.
And so I know that he's always down. I loved playing with Ben. It was so much fun. So I definitely want to do international stuff and just maybe like go to like a couple different like 1s and 2 stars and just see like how much money I lose doing that.
See what happens.
Yeah, doing it responsibly. So like if I lose in the qualifier, I'm not going to be like, shoot, like I can't pay rent.
No, you just got to make sure you're in a good place. So then you're like, well, I'm on vacation.
Yeah, exactly. And like that's the point. Like now I look at it, and a lot of the goals aren't as much results based as it is like systems based and journey based. Like I'm like, I want to see 2 countries.
Right.
All right. Well, there's a 1-star in Norway. Let's go say hi to Anders and Christian again.
Right.
You know?
I lost the tournament, but I checked off one of my bucket lists.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
so
great.
you can have a life goal parallel with a volleyball goal.
Mm-hmm.
And then I definitely want to, like AVP wise, would love to make like a Saturday afternoon. I think that would be good. And I think with the Olympic push that a lot of players are making, that's not that far out of the question.
You're going to go to the Olympics.
Well, no, everyone else is going. So while they're all gone, I can win the AVP matches that they would be winning.
Totally. You plan on going to maybe watch the Olympics?
Yeah.
Right for it?
I already applied for my press credential.
Nice.
So I think I'm going as a member of the media. I'm
That's
there.
a really good in, by the way. Travis gets VIP access to all events because he has a media badge.
Exactly.
And I learned that secret this past year. I held on to my media badge.
Yeah. So the media badge is great. It's like, it's funny too. We were at the Lakers game last night, and I pointed over to the press guys.
Second
That's
row,
where I
by the way,
usually sit.
people.
Yeah. And like tickets would probably, where the press hit, tickets would be like $500. It's like press kit, we get hooked up.
Dude, heck
and so
yeah.
So I'm going to Tokyo. I'll be there.
Damn.
I already got my press credential. So
Jeez.
you have to apply super early.
Should I just apply for one of those just in case?
You might as well. It's Sandcast or Volleyball Mag. You can put it under that umbrella. That would work.
Wow. That's a brilliant idea. I'm not going to put that in my head, though, until...
Yeah, why don't you go as a player?
I'm just going to go as a player.
I get to write about you guys.
All right, I'm in. What are the goals for the book? And like we said, it's coming out December 5th.
Yep.
And the people can get it on Amazon.
Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
BarnesandNoble.com.
Yeah.
Or in the store.
I'm sure that I'm talking to like local stores to get in, but like you're not gonna get it at Barnes & Noble in Nebraska.
Well,
like, sorry guys.
Until everyone starts buying it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Goals for the book, like, honestly, at this point, everything I have in beach volleyball, except for the playing part, has come via result of the book, like directly or indirectly. Like all the research that I did for the book is what made me write about it so efficiently and effectively that got me a job with Volleyball Mag and Dig. And like I did an interview with you, which now we have Sandcast. Mm-hmm. So like the social capital that's already been built from the book is like beyond anything I could have imagined. It's like now, like whatever the book makes, awesome, great. Like we've already made enough on Sandcast. Like I was able to pay the editor, the designer. I turned down offers from smaller publishing houses because I wanted like full control of it. Because like my first book, like I went through the agent publishing house and like I didn't like losing control, and I didn't like losing control of my margins either.
Right.
It's like, damn, this is what I made when I sold all those books.
Right.
Shoot.
Exactly.
So like, I mean, whatever I sell, like the funny part is that technically this book will probably be a bestseller in the volleyball category.
Hell yeah. Hey, let's make that
a category of one.
Let's make that happen,
because there's
people.
no other volleyball books that are going to be selling right now. Like you sell 2 books, number 1.
We're brilliant.
So I'll be able to say I'm a best-selling author.
Well, I mean, I think it definitely could be the best volleyball book that we've had out so far because we actually have a writer writing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, go buy this book, people. Support our volleyball ways, the volleyball peeps, and I'm sure if it does well, which I'm sure it will, this guy will write another one, and he'll have some world tour experience by then.
Yeah, well, it's funny too because like the other one, like, so I had to cut out like 40,000 words, and so
he's got lots more to write.
It's already there. Like half the manuscript of the other one's already there. I just need to do more research and figure out the structure. The structuring of the book was by far the hardest part.
You need to go on a few more journeys.
Yeah, so I need to dig into more of the old school guys. For that one, but the other book, like the parts that I cut out, would be beach volleyball leading up to the Olympics. So I'm hoping to like have that one done by Tokyo. Nice. Drop it like, oh, here's how beach volleyball got into the Olympics. Look at that, it's the Olympics right now.
Oh yeah.
So there's a preview of your next one for 2020.
I love it. All right, go buy the book, people. Travis, we're probably going to give you one of the longest episodes.
I'll take it.
It's totally. I mean, everyone's been waiting about a year to figure out who the hell you are, so it's pretty fitting. But lastly, as we ask all of our guests, what was our question again?
If you had to give a piece of advice.
I'll ask it. If you had to give a piece of advice to a younger up-and-coming beach volleyball player, what would that piece of advice be? Sorry, I had to ask it.
Man,
I had one job.
I ask all of our guests this. I never think I would answer it myself. I think I would say be curious. Be curious about like everything. Like if you really do want to like do something in the game, like really be curious and ask the questions. Like find guys that go to an AVP tournament, just ask them questions. Like, hey Phil, like how did you get good when you were in Central Florida? Like no one plays volleyball in Central Florida. He'll tell you, and then like just dig into your own game. Like be curious. Like all right, well I can't handset. Who can I look at who handsets really well? All right, I'm gonna go watch videos of Casey Patterson, who like just sauces. If you're like built like Trevor Crabb, like for example, like I watched so much film on you and Trevor Crabb just because we're about the same build, and just like ask questions and dig into your own game and figure out like one, why you want to do this, how you can get better at it. Like if you're curious about it and you really dig into it, you're gonna get better because you're gonna find the answers that you're looking for. It's just a matter of finding the answers then implementing them and being humble enough to actually inspect your own problems. Like there are so many egos in this sport. You see a lot of guys that get stuck in qualifiers, and it's not like they're way more talented than I am.
Alexa, stop. Sorry.
You're good. But they just like they don't dig into why they lost. And if you're more curious about like yourself and you're humble enough to really figure out like what the problem is and figure it out, like you're gonna, like I said, walk slowly but never backwards. Like you'll keep walking slowly in that direction. Just be patient, be curious, and just like go for it.
And there's going to be another book out there on December 5th for you to learn even
Exactly.
more
There we
about.
go.
More information
There's a lot of
out
answers there for you.
All right.
Thanks for having me on my own podcast, Tri.
Heck yeah. You're welcome anytime.
I'll take it.
Come on next week. All right, people. We out.
Shoots.